Welcome in on a Wednesdays. Good afternoon, Michigan football. Ready to kick this one off on the 12th of November. We got a lot of good things to talk about, including a basketball game last night down in Detroit that was won by a bucket by Michigan. We will get to that coming up. Also, recruiting both on the football side and on the basketball side. There have been some additions, and there's a early signing day, and so some things to cover when it comes down to recruiting. And I gotta say that most people that watch a show like this, they like recruiting. You could just do a show all the time just talking about recruiting all the time, and it would be a very popular show. So we've got that for you coming up. But we're going to start with the football game that's coming up on Saturday. Michigan, a 10-point favorite. They're playing at Wrigley. That part's kind of cool, that it's Chicago and it's pretty close. That's pretty nice as well. And even though it's not a fun drive, it doesn't take you, it could take anywhere from, 3 to 5 hours, with the traffic and everything else. But once you get in there and you get around Wrigley Field and Wrigleyville, it is amazing. I've been there once or twice. And there's a lot of people that when they graduate college, seem like they go to Chicago for a little while. It's a stopping grounds, or a very popular place to go right after college to start your life and everything. I've had a lot of friends, and you'll hear about them. Oh yeah, they live 2 blocks, from Wrigleyville or whatever else. But there'll be a lot of Michigan fans there. It'd be cool that it's at Wrigley. If it was at the other place by the lake, they're redoing their stadium. It's really cool looking, but it doesn't hold that many. So that's why they're, as you know, at this baseball venue. But so you sit around talking about the venue so much because Wrigley is steeped in history, and a lot of people have been there. And it's the oddity of playing at a football stadium, and so you've got all that going on. But for Michigan, they gotta get this game, and then they got to get the next one to set up the showdown with Ohio State. And if you are a fan of Michigan, you do hit the reverse button to last year. And if you think about last year at this time, that's when Michigan had lost to Indiana, and that made them 5-5 on the year. Then they had a bye week, and then they got the commitment of Bryce Underwood, and everything turned with that. They went and put a 50 spot up on Northwestern, got bowl eligible, and people were feeling pretty good. People feeling good about that. And then also, of course, getting Underwood because the future looked bright. Then they went and, shocked the world, beating Ohio State, and followed it up with their B team, or at least their backups, beating the A team and the starters from Alabama. And here we are. So all of that, it's just a reminder of heading into the Northwestern game that people were a little bit down. It was a little bit of a pick-me-up. And when they played some, it was like, that's Michigan football. And so we'll see. Maybe they're going to be able to, because even though they're playing for, because I think they control their own destiny in terms of getting to the college football playoff. Maybe not the Big Ten title game. They're going to need probably some things to happen to go their way. I don't know. I know there's some, like Jim Scarcelli, it almost sounds like Scar would rather play in the Big Ten championship game than, play in the college football playoff, but you're not going to have one without the other. So it doesn't really matter, but you want to, you wouldn't mind, getting in there and, and playing for that title. But if they can win these 3 games, if they can also play better than they did against Purdue and Michigan State, and specifically if the passing game can perform better against Northwestern and Maryland, going to feel a lot better about their chances, of course, against OSU. If they play like they did against Purdue and just slide by against Northwestern, find a way to get it done, the passing game still kind of looks like it did against Michigan State, looks like it did against Purdue, and then they follow it up with another similar type game, just win against Maryland. I don't know how confident you should feel. I mean, there's going to be reasons to feel confident against OSU, and some people it's just like doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how they play. No, none of it. I would think that it does matter. I think that it does matter how they play against Northwestern and Maryland with their chances against OSU. You might not. You might just be like, let's go. You know, they've beat them 4 years in a row. I didn't think they had a chance in hell last year, which there's a point to that. But if you're able to step back, I think that you should look at this game here. And if you want to look at the next two games, and if they can elevate their play, if they can find some confidence, some rhythm, some success in throwing the ball as well as running the ball, then they might have something. You know how many times I've heard this year when it comes down to the playoffs, I've heard a lot of people say, and I see people, write it, that Michigan doesn't deserve. They're not a playoff team. They don't deserve to go to the playoffs. And when I've seen people say that, I'm like, if they win these games, obviously they will deserve to go. But those people's point are they look at them and they don't look like a playoff team. They don't act like they don't play like a dangerous team. And so you get what people are saying about how they don't deserve to go to the college football playoff, but it's not so far out of the realm of possibility. Actually, it's very much in the realm of possibility that the passing game finds some rhythm and find some success over these next 2 weeks, and then they beat Ohio State, and then you're thinking, all right, maybe they even have a chance to win a game of the postseason, whoever they would be playing in the college football playoff. So that's where I sit going into the game. Feel like Michigan should win the game, and I also feel like Michigan should play better than they did against Purdue. So those are the two things, and specifically the passing game. I mean, those are the two things that I'm focused on. Now, look, I was focused on those two things against Michigan State. Probably everyone. Yeah, you want to see Michigan win and bring home Paul Bunyan, but you want to see the passing game start rounding into shape. That was what was said prior to the Michigan State game. All right, they just ran the ball and ran it down the Spartans' throat. And okay, Purdue, real chance to be able to work on the passing game, get the win, but really get that passing game. No, we saw what happened. So here we are again. It's a broken record. Are we going to be sitting here in 2 weeks, with Michigan having won 2 games and say, no, hey, they just won the ball games. Don't worry about the passing game. I'm not really going to need that. Or I don't think it's just going to come alive against OSU. I think that's the thing. So sure enough, they, winning the game is great. Winning it against Northwestern, finding a way any way they can. If they can do the same thing on the road against Maryland, but then that's the way they're going to have to do it. And that is the way they've done it. They did it that way against Ohio State last year. They made a couple miracle passes, but, that was about it. I don't know. Maybe so. That's it. That's how I see Michigan's game against Northwestern in terms of the, who might come back or anything else. You got some clues from Sharon Moore on Monday, and maybe they don't know. It's just like when you see guys, they don't practice all week in the NFL, and then it comes to Friday, and they practice and they get in there on a limited basis, and then they find a way to get in there for Sunday. Well, Fridays are Thursdays in college football because they play on Saturday and not Sunday. So I know people are is roller playing, and you might not. But you got to wait until the week, even if you might not get any news. Maybe the team has been able to say, look, we don't want you guys out there, telling people your friends or whoever about the injuries. So it might be tight-lipped anyways. But even if there is some information to come out, it's likely not going to come out until tomorrow. But I know that you want the trends and you want all that. So that's where I sit. That's what I'm looking at with this game coming up on Saturday at noon. What about you? Let's see if anybody, we got a lot of people talking basketball on here, which is not a bad thing. That's coming up right next. So there you go. Ferris with an interesting feedback. He puts Detroit pizza better than Chicago pizza. Is that what everybody thinks? It's tough that you have to pick between the two, but I think that I would agree with that. But man, I went to some place in Chicago. They have like candle wax on the everywhere on the walls or something. It was a long time ago. But man, I was eating that pizza and I thought, there's nothing better than this piece of pizza right here. Then I went another time and had some other pizza and I thought, man, this is great pizza. But a lot of great pizza in Detroit. So in general, I'm going to agree with him. The food part, and this is where you're provincial. You're from the state of Michigan, or you're from Detroit, so you're going to pick Michigan, and F Chicago and screw Illinois and everything that's about them. But I had, if there could actually be a great moment in having a meal or just having some food. I had one of the, I don't even know what you call it, transcendent moments, which is weird, talk about food that way, especially a hot dog. But I did have the transcendent, one of the greatest 10 minutes I ever had eating was at Wrigley Field in center field, having one of their Chicago hot dogs. Now, if you said, hey, do you like a Detroit dog over a Chicago dog? I'd say, Detroit. But I'm going to be biased about that. But the transcendent moment was actually at Wrigley Field. If you're watching this and you go to Wrigley, there was, I looked, the bleachers are in one of the end zones. If you go into those bleachers, they've got the old ramps, like very similar to Tiger Stadium. I think they were built in the same year. And then Fenway was built 2 years after, all right in the same ballpark of when they were built, both Fenway and Wrigley and Tiger Stadium. And before Tiger Stadium, this is a long right turn, but before Tiger Stadium put in sometime in the 70s, before they put those blue seats and then the orange reserve seats, they had just these green seats. And, you'll see them in some of the older photos. If you get to Wrigley early enough and you get in there and you look around, you're like, this is what it almost looks, it's very similar looking to what Tiger Stadium looked like. All right, but you go out there and then I walked on these ramps. Now, I had a few of those old styles, which is the beer used to be of Chicago that they were famous on, all that just people drank. And so that might have had something to do with it, but there was that hot dog, and I thought, wow, that's the greatest. But interesting how you'd go through that, and even though I had some great experiences with dogs, I mean pizza from Chicago. There you go. 23 Tails is in, and oh yeah, there's this dog. I like it. Let's see what he has to say. He is saying Old Miss and Michigan comparison. Old Miss empty the playbook first week of the season. Michigan has been known to wait until the last game to empty the playbook. Ole Miss puts fear in opponents early. Well, let's just say that's true. Would you rather spring everything on everyone right off the bat and then they can look at what you have done? Or would you rather save it for the biggest game at the end, especially if you can survive till then? I think the answer would be the way that Michigan does things. If that's true, the only problem that I have, and it's pretty simplified what you say there. If Michigan, there was no reason to empty the playbook against New Mexico, but if they went to Oklahoma, and we already talked about this, they did tiptoe down there. They wanted to protect Bryce, and their idea was they're just going to smash their way to victory, and they ended up running the ball for 42 yards in the first half. It blew up in their face, and they lost. If you're telling me they just should have emptied the playbook down there and they would have had a better chance against Oklahoma, I mean, is that what you're saying? When they went to USC, were they holding back and, plays for Ohio State instead of emptying the playbook against the Trojans? And they were down it was just 14-7 at the half. Maybe they should have said, hey, let's use that last play of the playbook. Let's use that last page that we're saving everything for Ohio State against USC. We might need it. So while it sounds good, and I do think they work on things just for Ohio State, a specific play or all of that, I would be against that if I had any say in the game plans and the approach on the season and how you want to play your best football. The idea is you want to win the games that are in front of you that week. I understand that you're it's the biggest rivalry ever, but saving up everything or even most everything, working on something just for OSU, I get, but this part, Michigan has been known to wait until the last game to empty the playbook. It's got me thinking a lot about that. While they do some of that, I don't like the approach if they're saving too much. I don't think they should be saving too much for OSU. And then what did they do previous to the these last 4 years? That's 16 years before. Were they saving everything up and then just for what? Because they didn't play very well in that game. So there it is. It's good thought-provoking feedback. 23 Tails adding that not this season because of Underwood. That's it. Cut from a different cloth is talking pizza, and he says you two are wrong. No disrespect on pizza. It's just Chicago's is famous. Detroit's is not. I don't know. I think Detroit's is coming along. I think that I think it's coming around. That there's more and more people. Look, like I said, argue amongst yourselves. I like I like Chicago pizza. That's always the tough part, You go up and somebody says, do you like blondes or do you like brunettes? It's like, I don't know. That's a very tough question. Do you like pizza or do you like hamburgers or chicken better? It's whatever I'm in the mood for. But since I am from Michigan, I'm just playing the homer card. Detroit. When it comes down to it. You're a breast man or a leg man? Depends what kind of chicken it is. Rico says the only time I saw Michigan play calling that I was amazed by was the Rose Bowl. You were amazed by the play calling against Alabama. I was the only time, I don't know, say the only time, the time I was amazed, though, was the 2007, would it have been the Citrus Bowl? It was Lloyd Carr's last game against Florida and Urban Meyer. And Carr's, whatever, 10 or 11 years, Mr. Conservative. Carr, why don't you throw the football more? Why don't you go for it? Why don't you go for the juggler? All these things over and over again is what you would say about Lloyd Carr. Well, he gets to that last game. And Michigan throws the kitchens, everything, including the kitchen sink. They just open it up. They beat Tebow, and I know it was so long ago that I don't actually remember, but it seemed like they were, going for it. Like, before Dan Campbell, Michigan was going for it. They were throwing every down, and they were throwing deep, and they were, had a few gadget plays and all of that. New York pizza is killing all that. So I actually don't know what a Detroit pizza would be, but Chicago, I keep thinking it's a deep dish. And that place that I had, but New York, I think of, they're just very big. And in fact, there's a New York pizza, it might be called New York pizza, right in downtown Ann Arbor. Right there. And my kids like that place. And I got to admit, the pepperonis are about this big around, and the slice is about as long as my arm, but it's pretty good. Cut from a different cloth, spent a week in Chicago, and he just ate pizza all the time. That's it. That's good. SK. Callie thinks we might see a different Bryce coming off the bye. Let's go 3-0. That's the idea. That's what you want to see. You want to see a different, I don't know, you just want to see an accurate Bryce Underwood. Will they throw the ball over the middle? Will he hang in the pocket a little bit longer? Can he throw from the pocket accurately? That's what, some of the things you want to see. If you start saying everything that you want to see from him, we could be here for a couple hours. Rico is not expecting Underwood to be much different the rest of the way. Can't fix all the issues in a bye week. I'll have higher expectations next year. Yes, we'll all have higher expectations next year, but you have 2 weeks to work, and you have the stretch run, and you have these 2 road games. So, sure, you're not expecting a, drastically different Bryce Underwood, but how about a little bit different Bryce Underwood? How about a Bryce Underwood that can stay in the pocket and deliver the football accurately? What can they do to get him to do that? CFADC is saying that between Bryce and the offensive coordinator, they're probably really annoyed with all the talk about the passing game. Well, I got news for them and any sort of criticism that they might not like. But the day that goes away is the day nobody likes you and that you're out. So, be grateful that people have shows like this and want to talk about you all the time. You're popular. Ooh, you don't want to be popular anymore? You don't want to talk about the passing game? You want to talk about Bryce Underwood? So I don't, care if they're really annoyed. How about going out there and improving? That's the best way to shut everybody up. We're not asking for this team to light it up and have Underwood look like the best quarterback in the country. We're just talking about delivering a couple accurate passes and not, burying them in the ground. there's a lot of people out there, and I get this is a little annoying to the fan base when you hear, oh, he's regressed. Well, it just so happens that these last 2 weeks were poor performances, underwhelming performances by him. So that's where we're at right here and right now. Previous to these last 2 games against Purdue and Michigan State, he had played his best game by all accounts. Accuracy, the total package against Washington, and now, the 2-game dip. But yeah, let's see it when it comes down to it. Chicago pizza, Detroit's coney dogs. Okay. Detroit pizza is Sicilian pizza. I don't know. Rico's been fasting a couple of days. I'm sorry about that. That's not very good. Okay, one last thing about pizza. During the football games, they run an ad, so they've got a pizza out. It's not that big of a deal. So you got your regular pepperoni, and then I don't know if they call them old style pepperoni. They basically, end up cooking like a little bowl, and all the grease goes inside. I don't know what those are called. Old style. Again, old style pepperoni. It's very good. And then this pizza place, it's called, I don't know, the triple pepperoni, but it's 3 kinds of pepperoni. You got your regular one, and then you got the old style, and then they chop these ones into strips. And then they've got that over the whole pizza. And every time I see it, I keep thinking, why not? That looks like it's pretty good. Because I've had all 3 of those in just one place. Chops them up like that. My wife got that pizza, I don't know, a year ago or so, and I looked at it. I'm like, well, what's this? And I tried it, and it was really good. So now 3, you get all 3 in one. What sounds pretty good to me. All right, let's go over to basketball. Michigan wins the game last night, and they end up winning it by 1 point in overtime. That's exactly ended up being the final score. I've got it here, 85-84. Let's see what you have to say about. Oh, one more before we go there. Hadley wants to know about the game. I'll be watching the game. Could you hang out with John Navarre at his tailgate? He'd buy a beer. Also, have been to Wrigley. I've been to Wrigley twice, Hadley. I liked both times. The first time Mark Grace had his 2000th hit, Sammy Sosa hit a home run, and it was either a year or year after. So I think 97 when he had his. And then the other time I went would have been scripted out, I would say, is the perfect trip to Wrigley. I was staying with some friends there. We went, I keep saying Chief or Johnny Yoo-Hoo or something. This guy that dresses up in the Cubs. That was a big deal to them. And so we saw him, but then we didn't tailgate, but we stood outside the general admission at center field for, I don't know how long, 2-3 hours. But as we were out there, we were just standing with I don't know, a couple old styles, 6, I don't know, 12, even before the game started. And then you go in there and you're sitting in the bleachers, and then Sosa was playing center. And every time Sosa would come out, he would acknowledge the center field fans. He had this thing that he would do. And everybody would be like, Sammy, And then Sammy one time threw a ball. I thought he was throwing it at me. Probably the other 100 people around me thought the same thing. And I'm out there, and sure enough, the person 2 down and was able to catch the ball. I was that close. Or maybe this close or whatever. But it was just an awesome time. The hot dog trip was involved in that. I don't really remember anything else that happened in the game with the exception, of Sosa, and that they won the game in the bottom of the 9th, and with a play at the plate. So it was awesome. It was as good a time as I ever had at a other game. The A's and the Cubs. Ferris is talking about basketball from last night. He says it was a great first half, then a collapse, then a comeback, then a stressful OT decided by one shot. In the end, it was a W. We all need to pay attention to this Michigan basketball team. I think everybody's paying attention to the basketball team. I mean, they're number 6 team in the country. They played great in the opener, and then your description of how it went is pretty close to how it went down. And in the end, you get a W. I would say that I would expect. It wouldn't surprise me if ends up being his worst game of the year. And sometimes you're going to have a guy get into foul trouble like Morris Johnson Jr. got, and that's going to hold him down. But they were able to roll out a third big and impact player in Ade Mara, who dominated the game and is a real impact player. To me, you think one of those guys, but there'll be different games where Yaks will be the leader, and then Morris Johnson. They've got 3 impactful frontline players, and that's huge for this team. I come away encouraged because last year they went down and played Wake and Greensboro, and they lost by 2. And then they played Arkansas, and they lost that game by 2. And then they played Oklahoma, and they lost that one by 1. So 3 games last year, they lost by a total of 5 points, and they were right there. And you got to find a way, one way or the other, to win those type of games. And from what I've seen from this team, last night they had one guy, and Gale made a few plays, and Cadeau made a few plays, but those guys in general didn't play all that great. Just Mara played really well. To me, that's a good sign. Also a good sign that when you don't play your best game and you're still able to come up with a W somehow, of course, that's a great sign. And last year they lost those games. This year they're winning them. So I feel good overall about it, how it went down. Close basketball games happen, but to win them is all that matters, especially with it being so young in the season. Yeah, there you go. It was like that against St. John's. St. John's, it was a back and forth overtime game. And there were a lot of plays where you're like, ooh, Michigan, don't follow a 3-point shooter like they did against St. John's. And but they ended up, hanging on and winning that game too. So yeah, finding a way, being right there in the mix and finding a way. That's what it says to me. The other thing that says is that when you miss 11 3-pointers in a row to start the second half, it was a good thing that they built up a 13-point lead. Then they got down by 7, but you're not going to win many games when you go 1 of 13 in the second half from downtown. It's just not going to happen. And overall, you shoot 16%, 4 of 25 from downtown. You're not going to win many games if you shoot 25 3-pointers and only make 4. And yet they won. And so all of us, like, this guy didn't look good, that guy didn't look good, which was all true. If they just shoot a decent number for 3, they probably win that game by double figures. So they had a bad night shooting the ball. And that's where you're at in college basketball. And I appreciate everybody analyzing it and looking at each individual player and anything else. But the long line, you're never out of a game. But if you go ice cold, that's how you can lose a ball game. They could have easily lost that one, of course. Ferris is talking about this team needs time to gel. But he still thinks the basketball team is better than football at the moment, hoping we talk about basketball being his favorite sport. Well, I think that the expectation heading into the season, both for football and basketball had bigger expectations. Final Four, winning the Big Ten. For football, sure, there were some people talking about 10-2. Yeah, 10-2, making the playoffs, because that's either, for a lot of people, successful season, unsuccessful season. But if Michigan makes the college football playoff, you get 12 teams. If Michigan wins their next 3 games, I will think in football, I will call it a great season. I think it's a great season. It doesn't matter what happens. Famous last words in the college football playoff. But if they win these next 3 games, to me, it would have just been a great season. They have hit their ceiling. Doesn't even matter. I would think that Bryce Underwood would have done some things in these 3 games, but I'll say great job by everyone with the football program, and a hell of a job beating Ohio State for the 5th time, and great job getting to the college football playoffs. Congratulations. You guys did it. Basketball, it's not enough to get to the tournament, which is nice, or get to the Sweet 16, which is, also nice. But, you put this kind of team together, you expect the Final Four. So, yeah, they played 2 games. We expect the Final Four. That's it. 23 says it's early, but it's the steak and potatoes of the football season now. True. That's true. Greg Stewart, the new Ryan Field, is that what they're calling it? I have a friend named Ryan Field. I hope so. He likes that it was always called Ryan Field, but was it called something else? Dyke Stadium, Dyke Field. I'm losing it. If Michigan somehow makes the college football playoff, their game will be on the road. That sounds right. I'm all right with that. Let's do it. G Money is just saying Cottage Inn. Cottage Inn, I don't know if they have uniform. We have a Cottage Inn in Dexter, and the one in Ann Arbor. I go there, and I've had it, and it seems it's fancier, it's nicer pizza. One here in Dexter, I'm not a big fan of, so I don't know. Usually you go get a hot and ready down the street. You get one in Detroit, you get one in Ohio, or anything pretty much tastes the same. I haven't had that same experience when it comes down to Cottage Inn. So there we are. We're getting here. I was seeing if I've talked a lot of these. We got down to dogs and pizzas, and we got specific pizzas. Which place has the black walls with chalk on the wall and candles or something? Is that Giordano's? I mean, it was a famous place. That's what I remember. And I remember that I thought it was great. That's it. I keep talking pizza. Sorry. It is Dyke. There you go. Greg knows that it was called Dyke Stadium, renamed Ryan Field, but was built in 26. Yeah, it looked the Ryan Field, Dyke Stadium, whatever it was. It was not that impressive of a field. And they're they blew up like something like you would get at, like a bounce house, kind of thing. And they ran out of it. And they got the cat. But the first game that ever went there was a Michigan loss. And it ended up being a great game. I don't know, 54-51. Northwestern beat Michigan. And Northwestern had a guy named Damian Anderson and Zach Kustok as quarterback. And Michigan obviously couldn't stop them with 54 points. But Michigan came all the way back. Henson was great in that game. But Anthony Thomas, one of our favorite running backs, for everybody that watches Michigan and can remember back then, loved Anthony Thomas. But Anthony Thomas fumbled the ball, which happens. But Henson gave it to him, and he was running, and he just nobody knocked it out. There was no punch out or anything. He was just running, and he took a few steps, and it just like he dropped it, and that ended up costing him the game. At least that was my memory of it. The other memory, 2 other memories, is that you get up there at the press box and you look over and you see Lake Michigan. And you get caught half the time just looking out saying, wow, man, this is a great view. The other one's a long story, but I'll see how short I could tell it. I parked out on this peninsula in this field in an RV, and we took a cab to the game. But I guess I wasn't really paying attention. And then when I went back, I got in the cab and I said, "Yeah, this RV park." And the guy was like, "I don't know where that's at." I'm like, "Well, yeah, it's just down the way here." Yeah, I think he drove around the stadium for about an hour and everything. Remember how much that cab fare was, but I probably could have walked it in the end. That's it. A-Train was the man, and he was good in that game, except he dropped the ball. That was it. All right, on the recruiting side, I had the slides all set up there. Michigan, they've got a top 25 class. They've got some decent players, and we're expecting all of those guys, say we, Maize and Blue Review, to sign here in the early signing period, and that's good. And then Michigan just picked up. They flipped an athlete linebacker from South Florida. Is that where he was from? So they're up to 25 commitments with this latest flip. And they are ranked at number 11 by On3 Rivals. So that's what's going on when it comes to recruiting. Weather, we had this, all of a sudden we were in the middle of February for the last couple of days in Southeast Michigan and actually everywhere. I know my wife's down in Florida and she was talking, oh, it's cold down here. I'm like, oh, great. Sure it is. But it actually was cold. But, I've just been outside. So 45 degrees, never felt better and sunny. And it's supposed to be, it's a high of 63. Who knows with the wind and everything, but it's not going to be cold. If you're a fan, I think that's, the team can handle any of that. The wind, that'd be great. It's going to affect Bryce Underwood's passes. I don't know. But it's good to go, it looks like, weather-wise. The New Life says the temporary field is awesome. Great view. Max size 5. No, it's great. It just doesn't hold that many people. That's the whole thing. Max size. Yeah. I don't know what the stadium size was. It's cool looking. Or you get a ticket there, like a, small concert venues. Those are nice too. So that's it. So yeah, full steam ahead. Basketball has a game on a Friday night late. Football back at it for noon. So stay up late on Friday, get up early. Nice Michigan weekend. Then you're going to have to stay up late because the Lions are playing Sunday Night Football. What a action-packed weekend coming up. And Michigan being front and center. We're front and center with you, Maize and Blue Review. Come on out and join us by saying, coming on out. I'm saying, subscribe by going to on3.com. We'll see you over on the Maize and Blue Review. We're talking Michigan all day and all night. I mean, maybe some pizza reviews as well. It's coming down to it. That'll do it. Thanks so much for joining us. And we'll talk with you on Friday. So long.